So hey everybody, welcome to this Prog Dog chat. We have here the members of Citrus Moon, two members, Patrick and Kevin. I've got their CD here. They are math rock, post rock. I get sent a few CDs, and some of them I just want to give away, and I don't want to give this one away. I really love this one. There's a couple tracks I'd recommend right off the bat for anyone who wants to check out Bandcamp page. California Roll, I guess you could go straight to that. Las Lunas, Dark Rainbow, some really cool stuff that reminds me of like King Crimson-ish a little bit stuff. Of course, I've got a big prog rock background, you know, going back to the 70s. I grew up with that stuff, and math rock to me feels like an offshoot of prog. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I would say you described it pretty well, actually. I think that math rock definitely has its own signature sound and unique characteristics that distinguish it as a subculture, subgenre. But I do think it's definitely born out of the prog rock culture and history. So yeah, I do fully agree with your assessment there.
And are you Patrick or Kevin? Which one?
Oh, I'm Patrick.
Okay. Just gotta make sure I got that right. And you're Kevin. Okay. Patrick, what do you play in the band? Are you the bass player?
I am the bassist, yeah.
Thought so. Right. And Kevin, you're a guitarist, right?
Yeah, I played guitar.
All right. So what are your thoughts, Kevin?
Oh, yeah. So I definitely agree with prog rock being like a precursor to math rock. When bands like King Crimson, as you're saying, like that album Discipline, that really has a lot of elements of what future math rock became.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It's sort of like to me, math rock is it has a lot of like linear guitar, not riffs, but sort of like patterns. And I know you guys are getting into tapping. I noticed Patrick, you do some tapping on the bass as well. You got a 6-string bass or something, don't you?
Yeah, the 6-string, that's been my main instrument for about the past 10 years. So that's yeah, I gravitate towards the extended range instruments, and that's also reflective of the prog culture in general, especially in prog metal. There's a lot of extended range guitars, so that was my original inspiration to go for 6 strings.
Now, how long have you guys been together as a band?
I think it was 2018.
Yeah, early 2018. That would have been the first time that Kevin and I jammed with Seth. And Seth, so the second guitarist who performed on this album and helped us write this album, he actually has since left the band. So he's in a new band, which is called the Abby K Band. I just wanted to give them a shout out. They're more of a singer-songwriter, classic rock kind of band. But it was me, Seth, and Kevin, and yeah, we started jamming early 2018, and yeah, that's pretty much when we got started.
And do you guys do a lot of gigs?
We've been working on writing some more music lately. Mm-hmm. Wanted to, especially with the absence of a second guitar player, we've had to kind of reinvent how we write music lately, and we just want to release some more music, which is always exciting.
Okay. So you're actually a trio then now?
Yeah.
We are.
Okay. All right.
To answer your question, we've really only played a handful of gigs as a band. So we started to get some shows lined up more consistently, and then COVID happened. But we used that time to actually record the album. So it was kind of like lucky for us in that sense, because there wasn't as much going on at that time. Yeah, so we've just been mainly focused on writing new music rather than playing live, but I think we're all definitely getting the itch to do that again, because that's one of my personal favorite elements of being a musician, is playing live.
I mean, certainly you could do it with three. I don't know. I mean, you've already got some material that had two guitars, but I'm sure you're working on stuff that will be as a trio. Or are you planning to get another guitarist or?
Currently, we're not really planning on getting a second guitarist. We're trying to write new material in a way that there doesn't need to be a second guitarist. Because when
Right.
you have a guitarist, you could kind of write stuff a little bit easier. You could, come up with a kind of thinner sounding guitar line and then a melody over that. But we're trying to kind of combine the two just so we can be a three piece.
Oh, that's cool. Because I love trios. There's a certain I don't know, it's hard to describe, but the three-piece bands, I mean, you can think of lots of different great three-piece bands, and it kind of amazes one how you can still come up with so much sound with just between three guys. Okay, so you're doing your trio now, and you're going forward. You're still sticking with the instrumental format, though, eh?
Yeah, that's been basically our like standard foundation of our sound. But we have talked a little bit about potentially writing a song to include a vocalist, but so far that's just an idea. I think it would be kind of a fun experiment, like just to see what happens. But as a band, we are at our core an instrumental band, and I think that will stay that way. Um but I am also really curious in my mind to see what our music would sound like plus a vocalist, maybe for just a track or two. So we'll have to see. But that's just an idea. We don't have anything confirmed at this time yet.
We are most likely gonna try some people out on some of the songs. Just have maybe one song featuring someone. So
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea, actually. I guess for some people, it's who don't seek instrumental music, I mean, I would seek it out, but some people probably would never think of seeking out an instrumental band. They'd always just think there's always a singer in front of a band. But yeah, have a guest vocalist for a track or something or two. That's cool. So how many songs do you have written now that you've for another CD maybe or
we're gonna try to probably do like an EP, but we got about 5 songs written.
and do you do the recording yourself or you go to a studio?
Yeah, we've actually been recording out of our practice spot. So we're in Chicago, and most of the bands in Chicago practice in these buildings that have like 60 or 70 bands in there.
It's like a big warehouse. Yeah.
It's a real old warehouse that we practice in. And luckily, we were originally, thought, oh yeah, we'll probably have to go to a studio. And then one day we were just demoing tracks. I brought some microphones because I've always had quite a few mics. I mic'd up the drum set, and then we listened to our practice, and we are like, whoa, like we could record out of this spot. And then since then, I recorded a couple other bands out of there too before we ended up recording ourselves. So it was nice to cut my teeth on that.
What was your DAW of choice? Was it Logic or
I use
Re
Reaper.
Reaper? I was going to say Reaper actually. Yeah, Reaper. I just would watch some videos lately of comparing different DAWs on the MacBooks because I've had MacBook Pros for years. I always liked MacBooks and I've always had Logic, but surprisingly, Reaper uses more of the computer than Logic does. It actually utilizes more fully, so it's actually it's a good one to work with. So that's cool. So you're getting your feet wet, Kevin, with recording. You have an inclination maybe to be kind of like a producer in a sense that way, maybe, or engineer, or mixer or something.
It's been fun just recording our band, mixing it, and I sent it out to my buddy John Mick to master it, and he did a really good job. I use mostly plugins to mix, and he sent it into some analog gear, which was
Oh,
nice.
nice. Actually, yeah, I'd like to ask about this CD. The bass frequencies are immense. I noticed it playing it even on this little ghetto blaster I have in my bedroom, which I listen to CDs on sometimes. And however you mixed this, you mastered it really well or mixed it really well because the bass frequencies were very prominent, and I've never heard them come out of this little blaster before like that.
Awesome.
And listening on the headphones just before now, actually, I was just wanting to review some of your music again. The bass frequencies are incredible. So what's the story in that?
I mostly mix bass with headphones. when I mix them. Well, I'll do it through the speakers and then I'll reference with the headphones. And I actually spent a lot of time with like the mid frequencies of the bass, just to like add some extra distortion to make it more crunchy or audible through smaller speakers. And I
Right.
know when he had it mastered, my friend, he was telling me that he added some of like the real low subs to it as well, like the
Mhm.
whole record at the same time.
Yeah. Well, you guys did a great job. Really like that. Well,
Awesome.
let's talk a little bit about gear because, of course, that's it's hard to avoid that topic when when you're in a band. So I noticed, of course, Patrick, you got the six string. What about you, Kevin? What are you playing gear wise?
I usually switch between. I have this it's American made Fender offset Telecaster, and then I'm using a Strat style guitar. It's a Schecter. And our other guitarist, he was using a PRS with humbuckers.
And what
But
about amps? Do you use virtual amps or?
it's kind of like half and half actually. We've definitely had a few sessions where the amps were mic'd up, and some of the songs are like all real amps. But we were doing some tracking from home, so our other guitarist, he was sending me DIs, and I would just run them through some kind of simulation. And the
Mhm.
bass was recorded all DI through like an old Fractal
Yeah,
XFX.
through XFX Ultra. It's a discontinued model of XFX, but I've been using it for a long time. But I think so. Something that Kevin pointed out is that the bass, like the tone, I think is maybe at its best, like literally just DI. Obviously you got to watch and make sure it's not peaking, but I think that might be the new way in which I go about recording for our new album. Even though I liked the sound that the XFX Ultra had, I think DI is going to be like an even bigger and kind of cleaner sound, so to speak. So, yeah, and I was actually just remembering we did use amps
Yeah.
in some recordings, maybe even for bass too. I'm just going back down memory lane, thinking about what we did in the past.
Yeah, I would say I did like maybe like 90% of amps on my guitars. And then our other guitar player, he was maybe like, it was maybe like 40% amps,
Mm,
other part plugins.
yeah.
Yeah. What kind of guitar bass do you play, Patrick?
So it's an Ibanez BTB model. And yeah, it's been something that I've absolutely loved playing on for about the past 10 years. And yeah, I don't anticipate switching anytime soon. I think that I'll just continue playing it. And there are like far fewer options when you get to the six string like range. So Ibanez I just found to be a solid brand in general.
And you do a lot of tapping on the bass. I noticed when I saw a video of you doing a live shot, you were doing tapping on the neck. And is that something you do a lot, or is it just once in a while? Or
Yeah, I do it a lot. I actually had to kind of pull back. I want to write music that fits our songs. So I kind of have to restrain myself from doing a lot of excessive tapping, but that's the style of playing that I'm by far most drawn to as a musician. So pretty much any song that I've ever written, like there's always a certain degree of tapping included. So that's kind of my comfort zone and center of gravity, if you will.
and how did you decide to approach bass with tapping? Was it Tony Levin or something, or what got you into tapping?
Well, I absolutely love Tony Levin. He's a legend in the history of bass. So I think that the first person who really inspired me to try it out was probably the guitarist Andy McGee. I don't know if you've
Oh
heard
yeah, yep, I know Andy McGee. Yep.
some of the most beautiful instrumental music that I've ever heard. So I think that he was the first person that made me want to try it out. But more specifically, in terms of basis, Victor Wooten is one of my favorites. there's a bassist named Evan Brewer he's like a metal bassist primarily, but he's written some like solo bass albums that's more of a prog mindset. So Evan Brewer is someone who really, really inspires me. And there's a YouTube bassist. I might mispronounce his name because he's Polish. It's like Grzegorz Kaczynski. He's one of my favorite bassists who employs a lot of tapping in his playing. So I would definitely recommend checking him out.
Will do. And how about you, Kevin? What guitar influences or heroes that you do have?
Yeah, so when it comes to the style of music we play, one of the first bands that I started listening to that was more progressive was this band called Protest the Hero. They're a progressive metal band. They're from Canada, actually.
Oh, I'll have to check them out.
Yeah, once I found out about them, I started kind of researching more what was in the progressive range, and I found this band. They're called Terra Mellos, and they're one of the most popular math rock bands, and they do a lot of really crazy effect pedal stuff where they're just hitting notes and hitting pedals all over the place. And guitar pedals definitely have helped influence our songs. Like if I buy a new pedal, I try to make sure I can write a song with that pedal. And that's kind of how we've maybe developed some of our songs.
Okay, that's interesting because I can relate to that. I usually have that when I buy a guitar or a pedal, like you say, where if I can pick it up and immediately start creating something on it, I know that that's the right instrument for me. That's the right pedal. If I can just pick it up, start making something right on it, right off the bat. That's a cool way to approach your pedal buying. So when you go pedal buying, do you pick them? I mean, there's such a plenitude of pedals nowadays. Do you go online and just see what looks cool, or you go to the store or used pedals, or just how do you approach buying pedals?
It's definitely both. Like I'll see something online, and a lot of times it won't be something that you can find locally. And when it is something that you can find locally, like I have found some cool. I bought a pedal at the Chicago Music Exchange, which is like the real big guitar store by us. And I've also bought some stuff from Sweetwater, like at the location. But yeah, whenever you go online, it's much easier to find something used for a cheaper price because then you don't have to pay like Illinois tax is kind of expensive and things like that. So, and you could always sell it and get your money back if you're buying it used, and you won't really lose anything.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about gear when you buy it secondhand. That's right. You don't really lose a lot. It's like driving a car off a car lot when it's brand new versus buying it a couple years old or whatever. Yeah, I guess, I mean, speaking of money, musicians don't earn a lot of money. It's a tough profession to get into. You guys haven't done a lot of live shows, you said, but obviously you're going to want to eventually do that. And you have a right to expect to make a living maybe off of music if you can. How are you thinking about the future in the sense of, is the band just kind of like a part-time thing and just see what happens, or do you have some solid ambitions that you want to do this and that by such a year? Or
Oh, that's a really, really good question. So I think that at least I'm just speaking for myself. I do think that given how hard it is, as you mentioned, to make a solid living playing music, I think that it'll be a part-time thing in our lives rather than being like the full sum of our
Touring.
Wait, what
rather than being touring. Yeah.
Well, touring is, I mean, even touring bands definitely have a hard time being exclusively a musician. So it would take like a big reframing of our lives, if you will. But obviously, as a musician, there's that dream of wanting to make it like your career rather than, just like a hobby or just, a passion. So it's always been a dream of mine. So we'll just have to see what happens. I'm definitely open to what the future brings.
How about you, Kevin?
I prefer playing shows for free drink tokens. That's all. Drink token. I don't want anyone to
Yeah.
stream me, nothing like that. No,
He's a simple man.
no. I like. So a lot of times I'll be just listening to music in my car at work, and I like when a random band will come on and I discover them for the first time. So I kind of want our band to have something like that happen with people. I know the possibility of actually making like a decent living with style of music we play is kind of harder to attain, but it'd be cool to make a little bit of money doing it. But I'm just kind of in it for it's, as he said, part time.
Right, right, right. And are you guys, including your drummer, are any of you, do you, any of you have kids, or are you all single or married, or
No kids.
no
So
kids?
I'm married, but yeah, me and my wife, we don't have kids. So yeah, there's actually no one in the band who is a father.
Well, certainly, I did some touring before I had a family or anything like that. That was cool, but I definitely wouldn't recommend if you have kids, don't go touring. Don't go into the music business. Like teach, stay local. But now that my kids are getting older, I'm actually open my thought up to the idea of possibly doing some being available for hire anyways to other bands, or as a musician to tour, like I kind of feeling like I wouldn't mind touring again. It's a great experience if you ever get on a full-time tour. Like I did it for about a year and a half in the 80s, and I was still a teenager at the time. It really improves your chops. Like if you guys think you're good now, just wait until you're on the road for a year solid. Your chops will get amazing, and as a group too. It'd be kind of cool if you could pull some touring together, like maybe open up for a band or something, and go along with them for a couple months tour or something like that. That'd be really cool. I really like Citrus Moon. I like your music, your songwriting and everything. How much of a blow is it that you've got one member who left now? Was he a major songwriter, or?
I would say that he contributed a great deal to our music. And, it was, a setback for us, just like it would be a setback for any other band. But I think that we've embraced the challenge associated with figuring out, what our musical path was. And, it gave us a chance to kind of reframe our music in a different light. And, Seth and I, we were in a band previously together where it was a three-piece. And so a three-piece instrumental band. And so that to me feels very familiar. But, I think I do have to give a lot of credit to Kevin that he's, stepped up to the challenge of writing songs as the one guitarist, because so much of rock music is constructed on two guitars. And obviously there's plenty of legendary bands like Led Zeppelin who just had one guitarist. But to me, at least, I really do love the sound of like guitars harmonizing together. Like I'm a sucker for that. So, I, as much as I love that sound, it's been really cool to be able to just kind of like reset like where we're at as a band, and to recognize it as a challenge. But that's also a way for us to get better too, is by embracing the challenge rather than, view it as purely a setback.
Yeah, that's true, because I can think of probably a number of bands that when they started out, they were different members. It didn't take long for member changes, like even Rush, who have been one of the most consistent bands in history. They started off with a different drummer. I guess that's sort of, you're just weathering something that's most bands have to go through when you're changing members. When you were talking about two lead guitars, though, I was thinking about you playing your bass and your tapping. You could actually do a lot more tapping and sort of fill that role of more leads as well as the bass, if you're going to get like Tony Levin kind of working like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I really do love playing that way. another bassist who I'm really inspired by, and I forgot to mention, is Stu Ham. I
Oh
don't know if
yeah.
you know him, but he's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, he's amazing. Here in Victoria a few years ago before the COVID and that. Yeah. Just before this interview, I was doing a reaction, which is going to come up soon in the channel, for Toe, a Japanese
Oh,
math rock.
yes.
One of our favorites.
Oh, is
Incredible.
that right? Because I
Yeah.
was blown away too. I thought, wow, here's a great band. And it just happened to be that genre. It wasn't really planned that way. But one of my Patreons wanted me to react to Toe, and he's from Japan, this guy named this guy in my Patreon. What other bands are you big fans of besides Toe?
Well, there's this other band that is very inspired by each other called Elephant Jim. I
Oh
think
yeah, I've heard of them. Yes, yes.
I think their drummer maybe engineered some of their records too. Um, we like some bands. There's a couple really cool bands from Ireland. This band called Enemies. They're awesome. They kind of broke up, but they have been doing some reunions. And another band from Ireland is called Abadeshi Shank. You should they if you reacted to them, you'd be really interested because they're mostly instrumental, but their vocals are like when they have vocals, it's heavily affected and really out there.
Oh, cool. That
But
sounds good.
Yeah, so what Kevin just mentioned, those are a couple of really great bands. Elephant Jim, who he was just mentioning, so their bassist, I think she goes by Katie Chang. So she's probably, if I had to pick like my favorite math rock bassist, she would definitely be my favorite in the in the framework of this genre. And here in Chicago, we have a really rich history of music, local rock music. And one of my favorite bands from here is a band called Monobody. They're bands that I'm really inspired by, and I would definitely recommend checking them out if you've never heard of them. And we could just sit here
yeah,
like basically listing bands.
a little bit too long.
Yeah.
But
And I'm in particular really into metal. That's kind of like the kind of music that I listen to the most. So one of my favorite instrumental bands is called Animals as Leaders, who you may have heard. So they're like maybe my favorite band. I also growing up, this is kind of outside of the niche realm of instrumental prog or math rock, but Radiohead is one of my favorite bands, if not my all-time favorite band. So like I like trying to think about what kind of chord progressions Johnny Greenwood would write when I think about approaching writing music myself. So they're a big inspiration for me.
That's cool. Yeah, I've just been getting into them a lot in the last year as well. I've been aware of them, of course, since they came out, but I never really latched onto them. I never really quite connected with them for some reason. But I really have in the last year, and the Smile as well.
I love
This is the offshoot. Yeah, they're fantastic. Yeah, I'm gonna be. Did I did a? Did I do it yet? I did it.
I saw you
Yeah.
posted a reaction. I think it was a recent Smile.
Yeah,
really.
that was the one I did. And I'm going to be doing a Radiohead in the basement for King of the Limbs. I think it was the one I was going to be doing. And then I'll be wrapped up for the whole Radiohead and stuff business. But yeah, I really love their stuff. And that's really cool that you're influenced by them. I think they are one of the best acts going today. Honestly, the Smile and Radiohead are really underestimated the power of what they're doing. They're pretty amazing. You got you're sort of pulling things together and moving ahead. The drummer wasn't here, obviously. Maybe you can say a couple of words on behalf of your drummer, like let me know what you know about him. What kind of bands he likes? Is it different than you guys, or?
sure. So I know like his origins of drumming, he was really into Stuart Copeland and Neil Peart for sure. He's really into a lot of the on-time signature drummers as well. And but actually, I used to be in a band with him a few years back, and we played a show with Pat's old band, and that's how the band met each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we met at a venue. It's called the Fireside Bowl, and it's called Bowl because it is a bowling alley. But this is a legendary underground venue in Chicago. Like if you were to Google Fireside Bowl, like you'll see photos of At the Drive-In playing there, Alkaline Trio, Jimmy Eat World, AFI. I mean, you know, any band in the 90s who was touring in Chicago played a show at the Fireside Bowl at one point in time. So yeah, I think there was something stars aligning, you know, for us meeting there. So it's
Oh,
cool.
that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So how is the music scene in Chicago? For example, here in Victoria, they were shutting clubs down soon after the COVID and everything. It was killing clubs. Mind you, in a sense, the whole DJ culture is kind of killing live music, it seemed, for a while there too. How is the music scene for live bands and whatnot in Chicago?
Scene here is pretty rich, and you know, COVID had an impact here as it did every corner of the world. But you know, there have been some venues that have closed over the years, even some that were closing prior to COVID. So, you know, I think it's difficult to maintain that level of infrastructure, but the scene is definitely thriving, and you know, the restrictions have been totally dropped. And now there's been newer venues that have opened up in the time, like when other smaller venues closed. So I would say it's in a pretty good place, honestly.
That's good. That's good to hear. Have you heard of District 97?
I have not heard of that.
You know what? I don't think I've heard of them either, funny enough.
Oh, you got to check them out. I'm pretty sure they're from Chicago. They have all the musicians are in the band are just incredible. The singer is incredible. District 97. I hope I got that right because there's a movie that has a similar name and I get them mixed up. I'm just going to check. Yeah, District 97. That's it. Check them out. They're in your neighborhood.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they're really good. Well, thanks for this interview, guys. Is there anything I should that you want to say before we wrap up? Is there anything I didn't cover or?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. And it's really great to speak with someone who really understands like the world of, you know, progressive music deeply. So yeah, we're just really grateful for your time. One of the main things I want to say is that we should be done with our new album, I would say within like 6 months, probably.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty.
We'd like to at least try to release some music every year, whether it's a full album or a couple of songs. This time, maybe 5 songs, but yeah, we're gonna try to hustle and get it.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I think the strategies have really changed and evolved over time where it used to be, I always thought the best thing would be always just to prepare an album, then release an album. But now it seems like maybe release an album, but release a few songs while people are waiting to keep to hold their interest, I suppose, maybe, because there's so much, it's such a fire hose of output, you know, because everyone can make their own music. It's so much cheaper to do now. And but yeah, good. I'm glad you're gonna keep it up and keep me in the loop for sure. You know, let me know whenever something's going on, and I'll be interested to know about it. So thanks guys. Have a great rest of your day. Appreciate your comments, and yeah, it's my pleasure to be interviewing you guys.
It was great to talk to you. Great to talk.